Hello and welcome to this short video that accompanies the tutorial Quick Start with Qlik Sense. We're going to start off by looking at how you can install Qlik Sense and install the tutorial materials. Go to qlik.com and choose the free downloads option. From the free downloads section, choose Qlik Sense Desktop. Fill in the registration details and download the software. When the software is being downloaded, you'll be presented with this web page. To download the tutorial files, click on the link that says Quick Build Tutorial. To install the files, double-click on the Qlik Sense installer and the tutorial installer. The installer will install 3 shortcuts to your desktop. The first one of these is a shortcut to the instructions for the tutorial itself. You should double-click on this shortcut and print out the instructions. The second shortcut is a shortcut to some data files which we'll be using during the tutorial itself. And the third item is a shortcut to start Qlik Sense. Welcome to Qlik Sense. Starting Qlik Sense and creating a new app. To start Qlik Sense, double-click on the Qlik Sense icon on your desktop. When Qlik Sense starts, it will show you this window. In the background, you'll see the Desktop Hub. The Desktop Hub shows you all the Qlik Sense applications you have access to. Right now, we'll create a new application, so click on Create a New App. Qlik Sense will ask you for the name of your app. Now, you can call your app anything you want, but I've called my app My First App. Click on Create. Once the app has been created, click on Open. Loading the data. Before we can create charts, we need some data to play with. To quickly load data, we're going to use Quick Data Load. We're going to add data by dragging and dropping the data files onto this part of our Qlik Sense window. We're going to do everything visually. We're not going to write a single line of script or even look at script. I've put all of the data files you need into a folder, and I've put a shortcut to that folder on your desktop. The shortcut is called 30-minute data. Double-click on the 30-minute data shortcut to open the data sources folder. You should see 2 files, vehicles.xlsx and countries.csv. From the Windows Explorer window, drag and drop the file vehicles.xlsx onto the Quick Data Load part of the Qlik Sense window. As soon as you do that, you'll see the Select Data dialog. This dialog lets us select which fields to load in. It allows us to set a header size and select tables and more. The data shown in this dialog is the data from the Excel spreadsheet Vehicles. The fields are the columns from the spreadsheet. If we didn't want to load some of the fields, we could just untick the boxes by the fields we don't want to load. But for now, we'll load the whole data file. Click on Load Data. When the load has finished, click on Close. And that's it. We've just loaded our very first data. You should now be looking at the App Overview screen, which will show you all of the sheets in your application. We'll load our other data file to give us a complete set of data to play with. Drag the file countries.csv onto the lower part of the window, as shown here. The next dialog asks if you want to add or replace the data you've loaded. We want to add data, so click Add Data. This will guide us through the process of loading data without writing a script. You'll now see the Select Data dialog. This looks a little different from what we've seen before because this time we've loaded a CSV file rather than an Excel file. And the options on the dialog that we see in front of us are appropriate for a CSV file. Now, on this window, the default settings are all good, so click on Load Data. On the Data Loaded Successfully dialog, click Edit the Sheet. And that's it. You've just loaded 2 data files into Qlik Sense. Under the hood, Qlik Sense has automatically linked the data. We've done all of this with no scripting. Now, let's draw some charts. Creating your first chart, a line chart. We've loaded our dataset containing details of cars and countries, so now we want to start exploring the data. The easiest place to start is by looking at car sales over time. Are car sales going up or down, and how did the recession affect sales? You should now be in the Sheet Edit view as shown here on the screen. Your window might be showing you information about your app at the top of the window. If you see information about your app at the top of your window, click on the I button to hide it. If you can't see this view at all, you're probably in the app overview. If this is the case, click on My New Sheet and the Edit icon. To move out of the Edit view and into the Explore view, click on the Done icon. Click Edit to go back to the Edit view. Right now, the sheet is called My New Sheet, and that's a very dull name. Let's call it something more interesting. To rename the sheet, we need to edit the sheet properties. On the bottom right of the Qlik Sense window, you'll see the Properties icon. Click on this icon to open the sheet properties. Let's call the sheet Car Sales and use an overview of worldwide car sales as the description. Of course, you can enter completely different text if you feel like it. You don't need to click on anything to accept the text. It updates automatically. On the left-hand side of the screen is a list of charts we can add to our sheet. On the right-hand side are the properties of the object we're editing, which in this case is the sheet. We're going to add our charts in a moment, but first we need to understand what happens when we click on some of the icons. At the top left of the Qlik Sense window, there are 3 icons which move us between different panes. This is the Charts icon that shows charts, which is where we are now. This is the Fields icon, which shows us the various fields in our dataset. And this is the Master Items icon, which shows us master items. See what happens when you click on the icons. When you're done, make sure you're looking at the Charts panel. Now, let's build our chart. In the Charts pane, click on the line chart icon and drag it onto the sheet. We need to add our dimension, so click on Add Dimension. Choose Year. We need to add a measure, so click on Add Measure. We want car sales and we want to add it as Sum Car Sales. In our data files, we have car sales data by year and by country. What Sum Car Sales does is sum up all of the car sales for each year by country. Here's what your sheet should look like. Click on Save, which is on the top left-hand side of the window. Congratulations! You've just built your very first Qlik Sense chart. Customizing your line chart. The default settings are okay, but we'd like to take control over the appearance of our charts. We're going to make some changes to the way that charts look. Some changes are subtle, others are more obvious. On the right-hand side of the screen, you should see the Properties panel for the chart, which should look something like this. Qlik Sense has labelled the car sales axis Sum Car Sales because that's how we've calculated it. But it would be great to give this axis a better name. Click on Measures, then click Sum Car Sales and change the label to Total Car Sales, which is a much better name. The numbers on the car sales axes aren't quite in the format we want. So let's change the number formatting. Change the number formatting to number and the formatting to 1000. Now you might need to scroll down to see the formatting option. This uses a comma as a 1000 separator and removes the decimal point. As you make these changes, notice how your chart updates. The last thing to do is add a chart title. Click on the top left of the chart where it says Click to Add Title and type Yearly Car Sales. Click on Save. You've now customized your chart to make it look exactly the way you want. On the Properties panel, there's a range of other settings you can use to further customize how your chart looks. If you have the time, you can experiment with making some changes to the chart yourself. Resizing your line chart. We need to make our line chart a bit smaller, so click on the orange arrows to resize and reposition the chart. Adding a bar chart. So, what countries are buying cars? Let's add a bar chart to find out. We're going to build a bar chart showing car sales by country. From the Charts panel, drag and drop Bar Chart onto the sheet. On the bar chart on the sheet, click on Add Dimension and Add Country. We want to add a measure to show the car sales by country, but we have to think for a second about what it is we want to display. Now, we could show the sum of car sales over all time, but I think in this case it makes a little bit more sense to show the average car sales over time. Click on Add Measure, Add Car Sales, and select Average, AVG, Car Sales. Qlik Sense now draws the chart. This shows us the mean, or average, car sales for that country over all of the years in our dataset. Click to add title and type Car Sales by Country. Let's customize the chart a bit so it appears exactly as we want it. On the Properties pane, click Measures, then click Average Car Sales. Change the label to Mean Car Sales. Click on Appearance. Now, I want to change the colour of the bars so that the country with the largest sales has the deepest colour, and the country with the least sales has the lightest colour. Click Colours and Legend, then click on Colours to change it to Custom. In the drop-down menu, select By Measure. You can experiment with the colour settings to see what effects you can get. Depending on your window size, the Colours and Legend menu options might not be immediately visible. If this is the case, you'll need to use the scroll bar to scroll down to see them. Click Y-axis, Mean Car Sales, and set the scale to narrow. This gives us more values on the axes, and again, you might need to use the scroll bar to see the menu item. Click on Save. Here's what you should have now. We have two charts. Adding a pie chart. We know what countries are buying vehicles, but what regions of the world are the biggest vehicle markets? We're going to use a pie chart to find out. Click on Pie Chart and drag it onto the sheet. Click Add Dimension and choose Region. Click Add Measure, click Car Sales, and let's choose the average or the mean of the car sales. Set the title to be Car Sales by Region. Now you should have something that looks like this. Depending on the size of your pie chart on the screen, you might not see the region label, but it will render once the pie chart is big enough. By default, Qlik Sense will show the dimension label region. Now, in most cases this is helpful, but here it's redundant. It's fairly obvious that we're dealing with regions, so we don't want to show it. On the Properties panel, click on Appearance, then click on Presentation, and click Dimension Label to Off to turn off the dimension label. Click on Save. Adding filters. We've got a lot of data displayed, but we'd like to select some field values. For example, we'd like to just select Japan or Africa or 2011. We're going to use a filter panel to do this. We're going to do things a little bit differently here. Click the Fields icon to see the fields in your application. These fields are the same as the column headings in our spreadsheets. Now drag Region onto your sheet to any place where there's room. Don't drag it onto an existing chart, drag it into an empty space. Now dragging this field onto an empty space will automatically create a filter for us. Now we could have created the filter from the Charts panel, but this way is easier. We need to add a few more filters, so resize the region filter to create a little bit more room on the sheet. Again, from the Fields pane, drag Country onto the chart. Resize the filter to create room. Similarly, drag Year onto the chart and resize it. Your sheet should look something like this. Click on Save. On the top right of the Qlik Sense window, click on Done, because we're done editing. You've now just created your very first Qlik Sense application. It should look something like this. Congratulations. Interacting with the application. This section is all about interacting with your application. You can use the application you've just created, or you can use the pre-built application MFA Interactive, which is an application I created using these instructions. To open this app, click on the navigation button, select Open Hub, then click on MFA Interactive. Now open the sheet Car Sales. Expanding the view of charts. Sometimes it might be nice to see a chart in more detail. Sometimes we'd like the chart to take up the whole of the window space. If you hover your mouse to the top right of a chart, you'll see this symbol. Clicking this symbol expands the chart to fill the entire window. To shrink the chart back down again, hover your mouse over the top right of your chart and click this symbol. Viewing lots of data. When we plot charts with lots of data, there's a conflict between meaning and completeness. If we show all of the data on the chart, we can lose detail, and as a result, we can lose meaning. However, if we just show part of the data, we lose the complete overview of the data. To solve this conflict, Qlik Sense gives us both a detailed view and an overview. The bar chart on the sheet shows how this works. The chart is in two parts. The top part shows a small and detailed view of the data. In this case, it shows just the top few countries. The bottom part of the chart, in grey, shows the whole dataset in a zoomed out view. You can move through the dataset by clicking and dragging the white box in the zoomed out view. Qlik Sense uses this approach with other chart types too. Once Qlik Sense judges there's too much data to show at once, it adds the scroll bar to the bottom of the graph and shows a subset of the data on the top chart. Selecting data on bar charts. Let's select a subset of our data on our bar chart and zoom in on it. On our bar chart, click a country, say Japan. As soon as you click on it, all of the charts update to show you just that selection. The charts are now only showing data from Japan. When we make a selection, Qlik Sense updates all of the charts to show just that selection. Here's what the icons on the top right of the chart mean. Clicking this icon confirms your selection. Clicking this icon cancels your selection. Clicking this icon clears your selection, and clicking this icon lets you select data using a lasso selection. Now confirm your selection with the green tick box. Note the colours under the filter boxes. We're going to explain what they are a little bit later. Deselecting data. We've selected data, but how do we unselect data? We can use the selection bar to select and unselect data. The selection bar shows what field values have been selected, it allows you to change selections, and it allows you to cancel selections. Click on Country and Qlik Sense shows you a list of countries. We can add to our list of selected countries just by clicking on them. To deselect, we can deselect everything by clicking on the Clear All Selections icon, or we can clear individual selections by clicking the symbol to the right of the field on the selections bar. Clear all selections. Selecting data on pie charts. Click on a segment, a region, in the pie chart and confirm your selection using the green tick box. Notice how all the charts update using your selection. Deselect all choices. Selecting data on line charts. We're going to select data on a chart, but because it's easier to work on a big chart than a small one, we'll make our chart fill the window. Click on the expand symbol on the top right of the line chart to expand the chart to fill the entire Qlik Sense window. Selecting data on axes. Move your mouse to a point just below the year axes. Now click and drag your mouse left or right. This will highlight an area of your axes and highlight points you've selected. You can do the same for the y-axis, and this method of selection works for other charts too. Keep this chart on the screen. Using the lasso. Click on the lasso symbol. Click and drag your mouse around points to make a complete shape. The points inside the shape are your selection. All other points are deselected. Clear all selections and shrink the chart back to its normal size. Selecting using the filters. The filter panels are on the top left-hand corner of our sheet. Click on the filter panes and let's make some selections. When you make selections, you'll notice some colours under the filter boxes. On my application, I chose Americas as the region and 2007 and 2008 as the years. Here's how the filter boxes look for me. The green line under the filter box indicates how many selections I've made in that box. I've selected 1/4 of all the regions, so 1/4 of the line under the region is green. I haven't selected any countries directly, but about 1/5 of the line under country is white. Now, about 1/5 of the countries in the world are in the Americas, so they are associated with my selection, and that's why they're white. I've selected 2 years out of 8, which is why there is a green line 1/4 of the way along the year filter. Global selectors. There's another way to make selections, using the global selector on the top right of the sheet. Click on the global selector and it shows you all of the fields in our application. You can select values from any of these fields from this page. Mobile development. This looks great on the big screen, but what would it look like on a tablet or a phone? Well, why don't we find out? Resize the Qlik Sense window to make it smaller, then a lot smaller. Notice how the charts are redrawn to preserve meaning as the available screen space shrinks. We can resize the screen down to the size of a tablet or even a phone. We can see how our application would look on these devices. Then, we can expand the window, make our changes, and shrink it back down again to test out our changes. Qlik Sense is truly a mobile-friendly application. What's next? If you have a little time, I've included some extra exercises at the end of this tutorial you could do to use some other features of Qlik Sense. Now, this is a real data set, so why not take some time to add your own sheets and your own charts to explore the data? I've included vehicle production data in the data set, so you could create a new sheet and look at what countries are producing vehicles. You could even compare production and sales. I have a superset of the vehicle data on my computer, and I've created a fully featured application called Automotive. This application has a lot more charts in it than we've been able to build today. If you have time, take a look at the Automotive application to see what you could do given a little bit more time. If you have some coding experience and you'd like to take this a step further, we have a more advanced version of this material available which will guide you through the process of creating a more complete application. Some optional next steps. Changing chart types. Sometimes we create the wrong chart type. For instance, you might create a line chart when a bar chart would have been a better choice. Now, we could just delete the wrong chart and recreate the correct chart from scratch, but Qlik Sense allows you to go one better. You can change the type of an existing chart. So, let's assume we wanted to change our year car sales chart from a line chart to a bar chart. Here's our starting point. You'll need to make sure you're in edit mode before you continue. If you're not in edit mode, click the edit button. On the charts menu, click on bar chart and drag it onto the yearly car sales line chart. You'll see a menu appear. Click on Convert to Bar Chart. You should now see the line chart transformed into a bar chart. And that's it. You've just changed the chart type in just a few mouse clicks. To go back to a line chart representation, drag and drop the line chart onto this chart or use the undo button. Telling stories. Let's imagine you've been asked to explain this car sales data to your manager. One way of doing this would be to take screen grabs and tell the story using slides. But the problem with slides is that they're static. If your manager queries a slide or asks for more detail, there's nothing you can do. With Qlik Sense storytelling features, you can easily move from your story back to your data and answer your manager's questions. Here's an example of how it works. We're going to tell a story about worldwide car sales. We're going to explain what happened to overall sales. We're going to point out which countries are the most important, and we're going to point out what regions of the world are least important right now and could therefore be good areas for growth. We're going to start by taking a snapshot of our charts. But first, cancel any selections you've made and make sure you're not in edit mode. Click the Take Snapshots icon on the top right of the window. You should now see a broken orange line around each of the charts on your sheet. Click on the yearly car sales line chart, the car sales by country bar chart, and the car sales by region pie chart. As you click on the charts, a little camera icon appears on the top right of the chart to indicate you've taken a snapshot of that chart. We now have 3 snapshots, one for each of our charts. So, let's build a story. Let's go into storytelling mode. Click on the data storytelling icon, which is on the top right of the window. We want to create a new story, so click on Create a New Story. I'm calling my story Car Sales, and the description is Overview of Dynamics of Car Sales Markets, but you can call it anything you like. Click on the story icon above Car Sales. This will open the first slide in our story. We'll make the first slide in our story all about car sales over time. On the right-hand side of the window, click on the camera icon and drag Yearly Car Sales onto the slide. Let's give the chart a title. Click on the letter A icon on the right-hand side of the window and drag Title onto the sheet. I've made my title Car Sales Over Time. Click on the A icon again, but this time drag Paragraph to the sheet. Here's where we can add some explanatory text. Here's the text I added. Car sales show strong growth, but the recession years had a very dramatic negative effect on sales. However, the post-recession recovery has been very rapid. Now, we'll add our second slide. Click on the button on the bottom left of the window and select Blank. We'll add the 2 remaining charts to the sheet. Click on the camera icon and drag Car Sales by Region and Car Sales by Country onto the slide. You can overlap the visualizations. I added a title, Where Are Cars Sold? And I added 2 paragraphs. One saying, China is now the world's largest car sales market, and one saying, Africa has the lowest car sales by region, future growth opportunity. Click Save. To play the slides, press the Play the Story button and use the left and the right arrow keys to move between slides. So far, this just looks like any other presentation package. But here's where it's different. Imagine our manager sees the car sales by time chart and the car sales by country chart and asks us what would car sales by time look like without China. Now, it's a reasonable question that might otherwise take some time to answer, but Qlik Sense makes it easy to answer the question on the spot. Let's go back to slide editing. If you're still in play mode, click on the symbol on the top right of the chart. Right-click on the line chart and choose the option Go to Source. This takes us back to the source chart, and we can now select all countries except China and look at the effect on car sales. It looks like China is responsible for almost all the post-recession increase in car sales. Now, we can show our manager this result on the spot in less than a minute. But there's another, more interesting possibility. We could take a snapshot of this chart and add it back to our slides. Click on the Take Snapshots icon. Click on the line chart to take the snapshot. Click on the Data Storytelling icon to take us back to the slides. Click on the camera icon and drag the most recent yearly car sales icon onto the slide. I added a paragraph that says, "This is global car sales without China. As we can see, the Chinese market has driven post-recession sales." Click on Save. Now if we play the slides, we'll see our new chart showing sales including China and excluding China. Using this approach, We can build up a story iteratively and maintain links back to the underlying charts, meaning that with just a few mouse clicks we can go back and investigate and expand on any part of our story. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the video part of our tutorial. Thank you very much for watching.